This is a continuation of the structure lecture. What we have here are three variables, two arrays, and then a pointer variable. This particular array is going to go ahead and store a string Joe with a null terminating it, and then this other one is going to go ahead and store doe with a null terminating it. And notice the tree-like visual that we have in that we have this pointing to the beginning location of where the array begins, and this is a bookmark to where the array is going to begin. And also the length of the array is being taken from the number of items that are being stored in the array, and that's why we have no numbers within the brackets. And then of course here we have a variable that has the ability to go and store the address of an int. So these are three distinct disparate variables. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take all of these variables and put them inside of a structure such that they become members. And so what this would mean is that we would be able to go ahead and get a hold of each one of these variables through the dot notation. So let's go ahead and see how this works. So you will notice that basically we have preserved the visuals as we just saw a few moments ago. Here we have the one array which deals with storing the first name. Here is the other array that deals with storing the last name. And then finally we have this third variable that is able to go and store the address of another variable. And so all of these structures that we're looking at are exactly what we just looked at a few moments ago, except that they're all put together inside of a collection. And of course, to go ahead and make it become a collection, we're putting it inside of a structure, which means that there it is. This identifies the beginning address of the structure, and so we go and use the dot notation to get access to first, to last, or to employee number. The way that we go ahead and use first, last, or employee number is exactly like the way we would use normal variables, with the exception that now we need to go and prefix it with the dot notation and of course the name of the variable. The actual syntax itself that's needed to go ahead and create this variable is, first and foremost, we have the user-defined type with all the different members, the first array, the second array, and of course the address of an int is what we can store in this variable employee number. Here we have int a, and the reason why we're declaring this is because this is an integer variable, and it will have an address, and we will actually go ahead and assign that address to this member of the structure, which can go ahead and store the address of an int. So we just want to go ahead and show how that's done. Then what we have here is employee1, which is a variable of type person. So person is the brand new type that we created, and employee1 is the variable. And now at this point we want to go ahead and assign the value doe, for example, to last name. And the way that we do it is if we didn't actually have this embedded inside of a structure, we would just use str copy last name, comma, and then doe. It would copy the contents doe into this array, but of course being that this is embedded inside of a structure, we have to use the dot notation. And then here we have employee number, which can store the address of an integer, but of course employee number by itself means nothing because it's embedded inside of a structure, which explains why we need to go and use the dot notation to get access to it. Now finally, this is an area of confusion, which is trying to go ahead and get a hold of this employee number and actually doing a jump so that we would be able to go ahead and assign a value to this a. We know that we're able to go ahead and assign a value to this a directly, or we could now go ahead and assign a value to this a indirectly through this link that we have created on this line. Now let's go ahead and decipher this notation right here. You notice that we have a dot notation and then we have an asterisk. So the first question that we need to be asking ourselves is, well, which one has a higher precedence? Because that will determine which one gets executed first. It just so happens that the dot notation has a higher precedence, which means that we're going to go ahead and do an employee1 dot employee number. So this means that now we are sitting in this location. Now that we're sitting in this location, we have to apply the asterisk, which says, why don't you go ahead and get me access to the contents of this address that would be sitting in that location. So the address that is sitting in that location is the address of A, and so we go on over to the address of A and get a hold of its content, and now we would be able to go ahead and manipulate the contents of that variable through this notation. The important thing to note here is, once again, the dot notation has a higher precedence, so that's what occurs first, which would land us in this location, and then from this point on forward, we just go ahead and use the normal notation, which is the asterisk, which does the jump and gets us access to the content of whatever that address is pointing to.